in a nutshell, I'm going to teach you guys my top secret methodology here of how I formulate product. And I've got a lot of obviously spices here. You don't need to have so many, but I have a little Frankenstein lab in my pantry that I have a lot of stuff that I've been using over the years. And some of this is not so conventional. But more importantly, I'm not here to teach you like how to make my rub, but to teach you how I come up with rubs. So I borrowed a page from Lego. So for those of you who ever played with Legos, you guys know that Legos illustrate a very powerful concept. The concept is called scalability and modularity. What that means is that scalable means that if you like blue blocks, you can add more blue. If you don't like blue, you can reduce the blue block. Modular means that the blocks fit together. And the yellow block will fit the blue block, and the blue block will fit the red block. And this concept is the same concept that I use when I do my regular day job, which is build data centers. I don't build everything with just one block. I mix and match different blocks. I mix processing power. I mix motherboard storage. I mix hard disk storage. I make offline storage. I mix network devices together so that it's scalable and modular. So let's say if I lose one segment of my network, I have another segment of my network that can back up the connections to all the users. Same idea with making rubs. Let me pause. Any questions so far? Cool. Now, what are the blocks in Lego that I use, right? So it's a very simple, over the years, I use many different schemes, but I kind of settle onto the scheme. I have now 4 blocks, and the blocks are very straightforward. And these 4 blocks allow me to create any rub flavor profile I like, including sometimes reverse engineering rubs I like. And you're probably aware that there's like thousands of rubs out there, and you can go crazy with rubs. And with a little bit of tweaking of the flavor, you can essentially create a rub from any part of the world. I can create a Greek rub, create a Japanese style rub. I can create a Singaporean satay rub. I can create a Texas style rub. I can create a Kansas City rub with using these 4 Lego blocks. So what are the 4 Lego blocks here? I'll kind of review to you now. The 4 Lego blocks are, the first thing is something sweet, something salty, chili, and then spices. All right, everybody got that? 4 blocks, that's all. These 4 blocks are very powerful, allows you to do pretty much any kind of seasoning in the world, because once you understand seasoning, you'll know that it doesn't matter which part of the world you're from. You could be from Greece, you could be from Italy, you could be from Argentina, could be from Canada. All the rubs fall into this Lego framework of, let me repeat, salty, sweet, salty, chili, spices. Now, within each of these 4 Lego blocks, there are many variations. For example, in the sugar block, you can have something like this one here. This is a powdered honey from a Korean market. Regular white sugar, you have brown sugar, and you can also have different kinds of sugar. Like this is piloncillo, which is what is this one? This is a cane.
It's a cane sugar
right?
block.
Mexico.
Latino
block. Yeah. Okay. So so this is obviously kind of a raw sugar. You have also palm sugar. You have also date sugar. You also have beet sugar. So within the block of the sugar, there's many kinds of sugar. So you can actually go crazy in your Excel spreadsheet. So in my Excel spreadsheet, I have one category called sugars, where I have different kinds of sugars because they all have different flavors. So for example, like this one, right? This one has more of what I call a molassy type of taste. It's completely different than refined sugar. And refined sugar tastes different than honey powder. That tastes different than brown sugar. And you can really experiment here and make many different kinds of sugars and add them to your rub recipes. So That's the first block. Any questions on the sugar block? Cool. Let's move on to the salt block.
Harry,
Again,
wait, one quick question. I'm sorry. Have you ever or known of anybody who tried like a non-nutritive sweetener like monk fruit or even allulose or anything like that?
yes, there's a whole genre of what I call artificial sweeteners, and people who have asked me to formulate diabetic rubs that don't have sugar, because the reason that this is sweet is because of 5 kinds of sugar categories, right? You have sucrose, maltose, fructose, and so on. So there's really like 5 different kinds of sugars spread among all these sugars. And what is important in the barbecue world is that you need the sugars for your chemical reactions that happen. Specifically, a little bit of the sugar is needed for the Maillard reaction, which is the non-enzymatic pyrolysis of amino acids in the presence of a moist environment. The other chemical reaction that this helps out is the reaction called caramelization. Because you have a wide range of sugar types, right, you can create caramelization. So you take the 5 basic building blocks of sugar and you break down into the sub blocks. There's really probably many dozens of sugar compounds that are possible. So the way you engineer the sugar Lego block of your rub is to create different flavor profiles from the different sugars that are present within these natural sugars. So that's kind of how it is. And then, of course, when you move into the area of artificial sugars, I'm no expert in the artificial sugar area, but that's a whole genre that you can explore. There's xylitol, there's a whole bunch of other artificial sugars that may work in barbecue for people who have like diabetic conditions. Now, I tried playing around with the sugar substitutes, but I couldn't like get it to work, because once you cook the sugar, right, the kind of the artificial sugar, it changes its flavor. And I haven't been able to figure out which one of those sugars actually will work best, because I've been playing around with these natural sugars for a long time. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've known people who've used allulose, which seems to be the closest. It's
what is it? What is allulose?
Allulose is like it's a sugar. It's a natural sugar. It gets absorbed, and a lot of people who are either on like keto diets or anything like that prefer it. But you can buy it. It's like monk fruit. It's naturally extracted, but has a much lower caloric impact. But it also browns nicely. So people who bake like a pound cake, it browns too much,
Okay.
but for barbecue, it would be, it's available, I think, at Costco and other places too. Monk fruit is granular, just like sugar. It's like fine ground sugar. It's not as fine as like powdered sugar. And it's about 70% as sweet as sugar. So, but like a serving has 0 calories and has a very low carbohydrate impact. Most of it is absorbed and excreted. So, but the flavor is there. In fact, I have family members who I like to cook for. I try to keep the sugar off, like my in-laws. And in fact, allulose gets excreted through the kidneys just like normally, and it actually pulls glucose out. You see a glucose drop and insulin response drop as a result of allulose, which is unique. It's not artificial. It's just the way that sugar responds in the body. It's really not processed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a new thing, and the health level, it's a much healthier alternative. For now, we'll see, but it is a natural sugar happening.
The second item is the salt, right? Obviously, there's a lot of salt here, a lot of kinds of salt. You have kosher salt, you have regular table salt, iodized salt, non-iodized salt, Himalayan salt, and there's a lot of kind of salt. There's lava salt, Hawaiian black salt. So there's no shortage of salt. So I usually use this product here because it has the larger granules. You can use table salt. If I use the table salt in my product, it'll probably be a lot cheaper because kosher salt is more expensive than regular table salt. So you can do plays a very important part, because all rubs mostly have salt, unless you are in a low sodium rub. Component has to be calibrated carefully so that when you cook, there's enough salt on the meat. You have to tell people how much to apply if you're going to sell your product. If you're using it at home, you can calibrate it. Now, I want to mention some people put this as a separate piece. So they make all these things, right? They make all these products here, the salt. and then they apply the salt as a separate layer, and that's fine. Some people like to cook using all these different spices that give flavor, but they don't add the salt, and then they add the salt at the end. I don't like that approach, and I'll tell you why. Because I feel that when you put salt on protein, you need to let the NaCl salt ions dissolve into the liquid of the meat, and then let the salt ions penetrate the meat. So I am not a fan of that technique of adding salt at the end or adding salt as a separate component. If I had my druthers, I would rather add the salt first, like let the salt overnight, let it sink into the meat, and then put in the rest of the product the next day. So my regular style is my products go in competition, right, 4 hours before I cook, and that's kind of how it is. I like, for example, like this test ones I did here. So I kind of lined them out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what I'm doing is, it may not be obvious, but I have 10 recipes here I'm testing. And I'm testing 10 different rub recipes on beef today. So once I finish cooking these 10 pieces, I'm going to sit down and carefully make notes of how they taste, because I need to be able to test my recipes on actual meat. I'm gonna show you how to make a rub right now, but the tasting a rub, right? Sort of what do you call tasting it raw means nothing, because it is not a accurate representation of how it will taste after it's cooked. Because once the rub, which is the salt, sugars, chili, and spices, get cooked and heat is applied, the chemical composition changes. So you can't always taste the rub and say, hey, that's a great rub. No, it's not a great rub. You actually have to cook the rub on different meats to evaluate the result in the end. So for those of you who bought some of my competition rubs, those rubs have gone through that process, and that is a very, very tedious process, because you have to make the rub, you have to test cook it, you have to taste it, then you adjust the formula, and you go back, you do it again and again and again until you reach a point where you reach something that you say, okay, that's pretty good. Now you have to take it out to the heat of the smoke and fire of real competition, throw it against 24 strangers at every contest, and see if that product ends up on the judging winning table at the end of the day, right? So you've got to have to go through that process, because there's no shortcut. At least I have not found a shortcut. I always thought to myself, is there a algorithm or a modeling piece of software I can write or create that will enable you to reach the pinnacle of flavor? I haven't found it yet. So if you guys have found some magic shortcut that you can simulate flavors, let me know, because that would be worth $1 million. Okay.
Do you
Any
have
questions
to,
about the second block?
do you have
Yes.
to test on different different types of fire, like charcoal, wood chips, logs, or pellets, like you're cooking with pitmaster?
On the actual heat source, actually not so much on the heat source, but primarily I test a lot in the oven. Obviously, you can't always test outdoors, because it's a lot of work to go fire up a pit. I always test in the oven, the initial flavor, to get the profile right, to get the saltiness right, because it's a matter of not just making the rub, but the application of the rub. How long you leave the rub on, how much rub you put on, all those are factors. So you have to create something that the average consumer will not have a problem doing. For example, I know that most people who buy my products, they don't have the time, or they are not bothered to let it marinate for 4 hours. So sometimes I have to kind of change the formula so that you can get a decent result by just putting on the product and throwing it into the pit. So these are considerations that if you want to go commercial with your rub, you have to think about. But for home use, you have a lot more flexibility. So that's the second component, which is the salt. Any questions on the salt before I move on?
Hey, Harry, I have a question for you with
Cool.
regards. Have you created rubs before that you found out that you really enjoy, but they don't have a great marketing value, or that they change from meat to meat that once you've developed them to the point where you don't like them?
Of course, the answer is yes. I have had many failures, obviously, right? And a lot of the failures, have to be what you call, you have to be cast aside, and then you have to move on. For example, like I have this terrific rub which is like a Hawaiian rub. And it's like an Asian rub with turmeric in it. It's kind of like, it's fantastic on making satay. But I realized that not many people know what satay is, much less make satay. I have like a Middle Eastern kebab type of rub that I have, that I make for myself. But commercially, I don't know if a Middle Eastern kebab type rub will sell really well. So again, right, having an idea is one thing, but making it commercially successful is a completely different proposition. I haven't been able to kind of like penetrate that market because my product niche in the marketplace is barbecue seasonings and rubs. Even though I make a lot of other seasonings around the world, I don't know if it has any commercial appeal, but I can try. I can try to see if I can put it on the market. And a lot of times I test cook it. I share with friends and family and get their opinion. But I don't know if people would buy a Hawaiian rub from me because I'm not from Hawaii. So I have no street credibility making a Hawaiian rub.
Harry, I bet when you call, everybody answers their phone because it's like, I'm coming to Harry's to taste food.
Yes. I have no shortage of friends and neighbors who enjoy all the food. And I've been cooking a ton of food for the holidays and I've been donating it away. So I have a fire captain, Roy. I think he's coming later today. He was supposed to come yesterday to pick up all the food I made, but I think that he got called away because of the Santa Ana kicking up. So I told him as soon as he has time, he can swing by and pick up. I have an igloo outside my house and a lot of the law enforcement, a lot of the firefighters, they swing by my house to pick up food. So it's kind of nice, on the way home from work, they can kind of stop by and pick up some food. And Mr. Beans is not the only beneficiary of all the food that I make. For example, you saw the 10 steaks there. So those 10 steaks will end up in some first responders dinner plate somewhere.
Yes, where is Mr. Beans today? I haven't heard him all morning.
He's been barking. Have you heard him barking? He's been barking with his friends. He loves to annoy me whenever he knows that I have the camera on. I'm talking on my headset. He always wants to bark. Okay, so moving on quickly to the next block here. This is the chili block, right? As you're aware, there's many kinds of chili in the world, and you can go from mild to hot. Chili is measured on something called a Scoville. The Scoville is a scale. I don't know who invented it. Does anybody know Mr. Scoville invented it? I don't know, but there's a Scoville scale. The Scoville scale is kind of starting on the mild side around 1,000, and then my understanding can go into the million. A lot of the chili that I use for rubs is more for flavor. I use this product here for the spiciness, and the spiciness hits you on a different level. This one kind of hits you on the back of the throat, and then this one, of course, black pepper also hits you with a little bit of pepper flavor. And I like pepper flavors. The thing you need to realize is physiologically, your body has 8,000 taste buds. The taste buds are scattered around the region of your tongue, even the roof of your mouth, and also your throat. And I find that you want to tickle people's taste buds by using some good combinations of chili. Paprika is needed, in my opinion, for American style barbecue because paprika is the secret ingredient that gives your meat the color, the mahogany reddish hue that's so beautiful. That's primarily provided by paprika, also flavor. And it's a 3-hour argument as to whether you go Hungarian paprika, you go sweet paprika, you go smoked paprika, you go Spanish paprika. The list is endless. So there's like many kinds of paprika. So you have to decide how much and what type of paprika you want to use. You also have chili powder. There's many kinds of chili out there. And I find that the ones that I seem to like are kind of a light chili powder, like a California style. And you actually have to buy a lot of these. So I buy a lot of these and I test cook them to see what kinds of chili that I like because they all have a slightly different flavor. Some chilies are very more spicy, but they don't have a lot of flavor. Some are very not spicy, but they have a lot of flavor. And then I usually use the cayenne to tune the level of heat that are in the rub. Okay, so that's the chili block. Any questions on the chili block?
So you've tested just about every chili that's available, right?
I buy everything I can see. So like how people collect shoes and collect cars, I collect spices. So my pantry is full of all these bottles of chili that I buy. And then always buy chili that's fresh. So you notice the color here. Don't buy any chili that is discolored because chili is prone to what we call ultraviolet bleaching. Ultraviolet bleaching means that if you keep it in a lighted area, the chili color will bleach and it will get light. The flavor will also be affected. So always buy fresh chili. Chili doesn't last very long. So like the shelf life of my rub is about 2 to 3 years minimum. A lot of that has to do with the chili, because if you put my rub in a brightly lit place over time, because my bottle is not completely black, it will bleach the chili, and then the rub will become lighter, and you're not going to get that championship result on your meats. So that's a little bit of a trivia there.
Have you considered making your own chilies?
Yeah, you can buy your own dried chili. Yeah, you can buy a chili. Like you go to the Mexican market, there's a guajillo, pasilla, there's mora, puya, chile de árbol. You can buy your chili, and then you can come home and grind it yourself. But that's TMW, right? Too much work. And on a commercial scale, that's not possible, because you obviously don't want to pay somebody to go grind chilies, where you just buy the ground chili. So for home use, you can definitely make your own chili. You can use any kind of dried chili you like. If you use like a guajillo is not spicy, so that will give you kind of a mild flavor. If you want to use a spicy one, you would go like a chili de árbol, or you would use a chili japonica. These are a much more spicy chili. And then the chili is probably a whole YouTube channel on its own, because I know there are people who are chili heads out there. They have a YouTube channel that focuses primarily on all the hundreds of chilies that are out there in the world. They all have different flavors, but you can go crazy just in this particular area by itself. All right, moving on to the fourth block. This is the most complex block here. It's like you can go crazy here, because there is at least, right, I want to guess, at least 150 spices you can use. And all these spices will provide you with different flavors. And you see me use this thing here a lot in my product, because I like this. It gives you a nice smoke ring. You see me use something like this in my videos, which also works really well, especially for beef. And some of the more exotic ones you don't see is things like this. Right? Does anybody know what this is?
Well, never even heard of it.
Yes. Okay, how about something like this? You guys have heard of this before, right? Garam masala.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, you know that. There's other ones. Have you guys heard of this one here? So, if you ever had Indian food, and you notice that Indian food has a very particular, nice, exotic aroma to it, and this is the secret that they use to give Indian food aroma. So the category of warming spices, if, for example, you want to make Indian cuisine, if you add cardamom and cloves and you add a little bit of cinnamon, these are known as warming spices. And these warming spices will give your food kind of an exciting flavor. And you can spend an entire lifetime just in this block alone, making and mixing all these different components together into your rub. So as you can tell from what I just described, these 4 Lego blocks allow you to create flavors from around the world. And the reason that you need these blocks is because for sugar, it's needed for the Maillard reaction and caramelization. You need salt for flavor. I find that barbecue needs chili for color and for flavor. And then you can go crazy with this block of 150 spices in the world. With this 4 Lego block framework I taught you, you can actually have a lot of fun making rubs from around the world. And you can also add other components, right? Such as this one. So this is ground pecans. So I've been making a series of different rubs that have additional flavor, like pecan rubs. I made a terrific peach rub for pork recently, and I really like that peach rub. So I may be formulating that peach rub into a commercial product. So you saw some of my designs that I put together in my labels. Those are just a starting point of creating some of the new rubs that I'm looking at, creating maybe a cherry kind of rub, a peach rub, a pecan kind of rub, because these all give different flavors to the meat. And I'm in the process of in the R&D lab trying to figure all that out to see how these things work on different meats. So there is no shortcut. So I cook my test products on chicken, on pork, on beef. I also test it on seafood. So there's almost like I have to test it on a land animal, a sea animal, and a flying animal for all the rubs. So it takes a long time. So I don't kid you when I joke and I say it takes 10,000 hours to make a product that is a commercial product. And then after you make all that product, you spend $20,000, $30,000 making it. You put it on a marketplace, you see if it sells. So sometimes it doesn't sell. I've been really fortunate because when I started in 2010, I made all these products for competition, and I found a partner in Cleveland, Ohio, who made it for me, and we started selling it. Then it was successful from day one. So I would imagine that is quite rare that you can be successful with a commercial product on the initial launch. But I had a lot of luck because I was fortunate to end up on a TV show, and that provided me some notoriety. But if you're starting a rub business from scratch, it is not that easy to get into the big boys market. You can do what I call retail. You sell it from home. You can sell it on Amazon, but it is a crowded space, right? I think the last count there's like 6,000 products out there. So there's a lot of what do you call rub manufacturers and sellers. This is not 6,000 individual rub. These are 6,000 companies selling rub. So each of those 6,000 companies may sell multiple versions of rub. So some people have like 10 different rubs they put out. But it's a lot of fun. I think that's part of cooking barbecue is the fun of creating your own seasonings.
Have you ever
Any
gone
questions?
so far to dehydrate fruit and make it a powder and use that as a sweetener to get the nuanced differences of fruits?
Yeah. I've used dates. Dates. I've used dried peaches. I've used dried cherries. I've used dried nuts. Yeah, nuts. I cooked. I put almond powder. I put Brazilian nut powder. They all have different characteristics, and obviously commercially you have to figure out, can you buy the product? I mean, obviously, if you want pecans, right? I mean, you can't really make like 100 pounds of pecan powder yourself. You probably have to find somebody to buy it. For example, like you saw in my rub, right? I have shiitake mushrooms in my rub, so my co-packer has to go and buy shiitake and grind the shiitakes down. I have Worcestershire powder in my commercial rub. Well, you have to buy the Worcestershire powder because the Worcestershire powder is sort of a way to sneak in MSG. That way, I don't say it. I half of my rub is MSG free and it's been tested. But you guys know that's how Worcestershire works, right? I mean, for those of you who are on this call, Worcestershire is the brainchild. It's not something new. Worcestershire is part of garam. So garam goes back 5,000 years. So the Romans used to ferment fish in salt water. The brown liquid after fermentation was very tasty. They put that bowl of brown liquid on the table at the dinner table, and that brown liquid was called garam. Garam is fish sauce. So what do you think that Worcestershire is? Worcestershire is fish sauce made by the British through an accident by a couple of Indians. So you can actually put natural products into your commercial products and stay away from the stigma associated with certain words. Like, I don't know why in America, MSG triggers negative reactions. I'm not sure why. As you saw in my very, very long video where I explained what MSG is, the fact I'm talking now and all of you can hear, understand, remember, and comprehend what I'm saying is because glutamic acid is in your brain. It's in your body. You actually have 2 kilograms of glutamic acid in your body. So I don't know why everybody's so excited about MSG saying it's going to kill you. It's in your body. You manufacture 50 grams a day. So, again, like I said, I try not to fight people because there's a saying, right, that I will not confuse you with facts because your mind is already made up. And you cannot convince people once their mind is made up. And unfortunately, that's what's happening in America today. There's a part of America that believes in science and part of America that thinks that science is all fake. So depending on which camp you're on, you will behave differently. So any questions about the 4 Lego blocks before we start making a rub? Basic rub, right? So let's start with 1 part salt, 1 part sugar. And you can use, anything you want. I use a tablespoon. You can use a bucket. You can use a shoe. Doesn't really matter. Right, so I'm going to add a couple of sugars here, right? So I'm going to add, this is honey powder. So now I have 2 tablespoons of sweet, which is the Lego block number 1. Then I'm going to add some salt, right? I'm going to start off with the same ratio of salt, which is going to be the same as the sugar. 2 tablespoons of salt. So now I have 1 part of sweet, 1 part of salt. Now let me go and add some chili, right? So let me see what kind of chili I like here. Eeny, meeny, miny, more, right? So I'm going to use a little bit of California chili pepper part. And then I'm going to go with some smoked paprika, 1 part. Okay. So for those who are keeping score in the Excel spreadsheet, what have I done? I put in 1 part of sweet, 1 part of salt, 1 part of chili. Everybody got that? Now I can come to spices. And for spices, I can go crazy here. And if I'm doing kind of like a beef style rub, I may add a little bit of this product here. Let me put a half part of the coffee powder in here. A little bit of granulated garlic. I'm gonna add a half part of granulated garlic. And I'm gonna add some black pepper. I'm gonna add 1 part of black pepper because I like pepper on my beef. Like so. And just a touch of a little bit of celery seed at the end. So maybe a smidgen like that. And I have a basic rub. So what I've done is in this particular Lego block model in my Excel spreadsheet, I would key in the part that I use 1 part salt, 1 part sweet, comprised of honey powder and white sugar, 1 part of chili, comprised of the smoked paprika and the California chili pepper, and then about 1.5 parts of spices on this side. Have we got that? So the ratio today was 1, 1, 1, 1.5 in this particular formula. And I'm going to taste it now. Taste here. Okay, feels about right. And next thing I would do is then apply this onto meat and then cook it and taste it. And then make detailed notes on the taste of how this particular formula comes out. So in this example, I've done this 10 times already. And the 10 times is over here, like so. Let me check on them, see how they're doing. Uh, 123. So we get it down to about maybe about 138 or so. Give it a flip and see.
What kind of meat are you using today, though?
Let's see here. Okay, everybody guess. See how good you are.
Ribeye.
You guys are good. I've trained you guys already for a long time. Ribeye. Okay, anyone else? Class quiz, impromptu quiz. What do you think this is?
Eye of the rib, right?
Okay, very good. Wow, you guys passed, man. Trained you guys well.
The one on the left looks like a New York strip, though.
Yeah. Different kinds of meats. Gotta test them all. Somebody's got to do all the hard work, right, for you guys. So you gotta cook it, test it, compete it, cook it, test it, compete it. And there's no other way to do this. So this is the way that you reach the pinnacle of championship perfection. There is no shortcut. If there was a shortcut, please tell me so I can follow it. But I have not been able to find a shortcut. And it's very tedious because right now I'm cooking the beef. Later on, I'm going to take the 10 recipes and I'm going to cook it on pork. And in that case, I'll cut pork butts into pieces like this, kind of pieces like this. And then I'll cook it and then I have to taste it. And after that, I'll cook it all on chicken. So I go and try to buy it from Walmart. You know, those chicken pieces that are very cheap, like $5 a bag. And I'll come and cook a whole bunch of them on it. So this is the way that I slowly develop the flavor profiles. So today I have 10 rubs, 1 through 10 that I'm testing. And I will update my Excel spreadsheet. And then who knows, in a few months, you may see the winner end up in a bottle of one of my rubs.
How is the partnership going with Jealous Devil for the co-packing?
It's going well. We are entering what I call the buying season for the buyers. What has been difficult is COVID, because I was supposed to be scheduled to do shows and also to cook for like True Value and Ace Hardware. Guess what? All those buyer meetings have been canceled. Oh. And we tried to do some of it virtually, but you know, to be honest with you, right, it's kind of hard to pitch your product to a buyer on Zoom. Just like, I can show you the steaks right now, right? But you're not going to taste the steaks. So, it's hard to convince you that any of my product is any good, right? Because, I can only show you, there's no smell-o-vision. So I can show you how I made the rub. I can show you how the steaks are cooking, but you can't taste it, you can't smell it. So if you're a buyer, it's hard to convince you to carry my product. But we are making inroads. I think we have like, I don't know, something like we sold like 15 pallets to different distributors. So it's a long journey. Like I say, right? It's always easy being an overnight success. 15 years in the making. And that's the rough and tumble of the commercial business. So for those of you who are your own, who run your own business, I think you can relate to what I just said, that to be an overnight success, it's a 15-year journey. But it's the fun part about it is being able to kind of create something and see how your baby grows up to be an adult.
Harry, I have a question about the coffee profile with regards to the seasoning and rubs. I see a lot of different rub companies out there use that as part of the spice packet, but I kind of don't understand the theory behind it. And can you also touch with all the grills that you have? I noticed that you don't have any eggs or Kamado grills that I've seen you cook on. Is there any particular reason for that?
Okay, to answer your question about the coffee, you know how sometimes men wear shirts tucked in and when men wear shirts untucked? It's all about fashion, am I correct? Products go through the same life cycle. Whatever is the rage, people try to make product that cater to the rage. For example, you guys know that this whole Texas style post oak barbecue is all the rage. So what do people do? They put out salt and pepper style rubs. Whether you call it white lightning or whatever you want to call it, it's all the fashion. So this apparently is going through a popularity phase. So coffee rubs have been popular primarily because of Instagram, people on YouTube. It's like a new child, right? When you have a new baby, you always enamored with the new baby. But you can see my little grill here, right? Oh, okay, the video shut off. Okay, we go. Okay, right. So that's my Kamado, right? It's not the green egg, but it's a Kamado. And I love this Kamado also. I love all my pits, right? And I have a lot of them. So when I wake up in the morning, right, it's kind of like, for those people who have cars, I wake up in the morning and say, which car should I drive today? Now, I have to admit, right, as I get older, I'm getting lazier. Obviously, this pit, right, requires a lot of TLC. You gotta clean it, you gotta fuel it, you gotta start it, you gotta watch it. And nowadays, right, I'm getting old and lazy. So this kind of a pit is easy. I push a button and it comes on. All I need to do is make sure that the fuel is full and I'm cooking barbecue. So it's a factor of my laziness. I enjoy all my pits. I enjoy cooking on a Weber Smokey Mountain. I enjoy cooking on my drum. I have more grills in the garage. I enjoy cooking on my 14-inch WSM here. I even have a trash can I'm going to convert into a pit one day. I've got my PK. I got my Summit. I got more Weber Smokey Mountains here. And endless supply of toys to play with. I got my favorite pit barrel here. So I have no shortage of equipment. So like I said, when I wake up in the morning, it's a beautiful day in Los Angeles. I just ask myself, what pit do I want to play with today? And I've been really enjoying this one, particularly the Hasty Bake. Love this little baby here. It's really a nice pit to cook on. I just did a snake brisket in it. And of course, can't go without my trusty kettle. One of my favorite pits here. And then this puppy here is also really, really fun to cook on. Pits and Spits from Houston, Texas. Fantastic pit that I really like a lot. So I'm very blessed. I'm very fortunate, and I'm very grateful that I have a lot of toys to play with. And it's just a matter of I just don't have enough meat to cook on all these toys all the time. But it's just lovely to be able to play with my toys. So does that answer your question about pits?
Yeah, sure did.
Are you going to have sleepovers there, Harry, where we can just come over and sleep among the pits overnight? Kind of like surrounded by puppies?
Yeah. What do you call as soon as this crazy pandemic is over, I'm gonna be able to reach out. And you guys know that don't be surprised if Harry Soo shows up in your front door one day and starts cooking with you and tearing up your backyard with all the equipment. I have received so many offers to cook around the world. I have a Patreon from the Netherlands. He says, as soon as the pandemic is over, Harry, I'm going to send you a plane ticket and I'll fly you to the Netherlands. I'm going to have fun cooking in my backyard. I said, sign me up. I have another Patreon from Austria, and he has a whole bunch of equipment. I got open invitation to go to Perth, Queensland. I have this travel calendar that's filling up, and hopefully this terrible pandemic, will be over soon. I cannot comprehend, right, that so many people have died. It's incomprehensible that we're losing 3,000 people a day right now across the USA, and that is more than 9/11. Right, every day we're losing those people. So I want to again admonish and encourage every one of you to continue to be safe and be healthy, and stay away from people and do all the things that that you should do, and most importantly, wear a mask. I cannot tell you that this is just a tragedy that would have been minimized if we had started this whole protocol of wearing masks earlier. But unfortunately, I live in California. We are having a raging pandemic. The ICUs now are full. So let's say if you get in an accident, now you have a heart attack, you have a stroke, you might have trouble getting medical care because all of the facilities are at the limit, at bursting at the seams. Have fun. Like I say, right, mental health is very important. So I always tell people, you got to take care of your mental health. Do whatever is emotionally satisfying to you. We all are in isolation right now, right? So physically isolated, sometimes emotionally isolated. Hopefully this Zoom session that we spend an hour together gives you a sense of your camaraderie, and we can connect virtually through Zoom. Get a little bit of our emotional needs taken care of by talking to other people, socializing and interacting. So I hope this session is useful. I would encourage you guys to reach out to any of your friends and family members who may be alone and isolated emotionally and physically because of the COVID. Reach out to them. And, remember, you can always cook the food, right, and drop it off. For example, like here, right, on this steaks here, I'm going to cook pork, I'm going to cook chicken. All this food, right, will go to good use because they will be given away to people who, who may not have food and who may not be able to afford food, because you guys know that a lot of people now are also unemployed. So I would recommend you try to give the food away, donate to a food bank, give it to people who are, who are struggling financially because of the crisis. We are so blessed, right, that we have the ability to be able to do this. We still have jobs, but I can tell you that, I have my fair share of friends and family who are not so fortunate. So it's very important for us to take care of those people also.
Are most places like the first responders open to receiving food cooked? Or when you have a relationship with them, but are they open? Is there something you can tell them to make sure that reassure them that it's safe and all that?
Yeah, you call them first. Don't show up in the fire department or sheriff's office or LAPD and say that here's the bag of food, right? Call them ahead and introduce yourself. Tell them who you are. I develop relationships with all these different agencies because it's been about 10 years now, right? So and I've also taught a lot of firemen, a lot of law enforcement people, a lot of medical personnel. So I've been able to develop relationships. So I have a list of people that I can call who can pick up food. So I kind of go round robin rotation. So like today's turn is Roy's turn. Roy's fire captain for LAFD. So some of the food I'm making, I pack it up and give it to them. I also try to give it to people around me who make my life meaningful. I take care of my gardener because, this backyard is not maintained by me. I take care of the pool man, take care of my dry cleaning lady. So, again, just spread that love around you to people who make your life better. And always remember everyone from the people who may perform, like janitorial work for you, all the way to your neighbors, friends, and coworkers. And I think that there's nothing more genuine that comes from your heart than cooking food with love, care, respect for the animal who died for your eating pleasure, and then giving that food away to other human beings. I think that is fundamentally a a beautiful thing that you can do, because I always say that when your stomach is full with good food, then your heart can love. And I think that I want more people to be able to do that. And hopefully by following me on YouTube and following my channel and sponsoring me on Patreon, you can get that basic level of skill where you can create great food and then spread that wonderful love and kindness around the world. And that's really the goal of my channel. It's been a journey and, evolving journey. And I always tell people that life is brief, so live it with intensity. I encourage you that if you have any talent that you have, please try to share it with the world, because we are all headed into one direction and going one place. And for some of us, the sand in the hourglass on top is less than the bottom. So you got to ask yourself, hey, with the remaining grains of sand that I have left, what am I going to do with my life? I would submit that, helping others and giving a little bit of love, a little bit of TLC to other human beings, it's not a bad place to start.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we're at the top of the hour. So thanks for joining me on my secret Skunk Works rub episode. So I'll just pause and wait for any final questions before we conclude the session for the day.
Have you ever considered making a spicy rub? I noticed that the rubs sometimes are not that kicked up sometimes, though.
Yeah, it's a matter of the marketplace. I find that the marketplace has a segment for spicy people. I find that in the commercial marketplace, most people don't really like spicy, especially in America. I live in Los Angeles, right? So because I have Thai, I have Mexican, I have all these influences here. In LA, we eat really spicy. So like here, I would put a lot of spiciness in it. You notice I didn't put the cayenne in this rub I just made. That's because in a commercial setting, I kind of like use the chili for the spiciness. I don't try to put too much cayenne because the rub won't sell because it's too spicy. If you move to the Midwest, you go to Kansas City, you go to the area in the Midwest, they don't care for spicy food. That's what I noticed. They like sweet. So you may have to add up more sugar in that kind of area. So for LA, Los Angeles, California, West Coast, we like spicy, strong flavors. But that's not necessarily true for other areas. Some other areas, they like just salty. Salty is good. So, you have to kind of blend your product based on the consumer profiles that you are catering to.
Is there anything about the schmear as well? I know most of the time schmear, it's not supposed to have an impact, but I use like garlic toum, which is Lebanese Armenian. It's got some strong garlic, and it definitely impacts it. Is there any other schmears that you would do that will complement rubs?
Absolutely. There is at least 25 products you can use as schmears. Of course, the common ones are mustard, Worcestershire. You see me use beef concentrate. You can use mayo. You can use water, Coca-Cola. The list is endless, right? So the idea is that my philosophy is layering of flavors. And some people say, why don't you just mix it all together and cook it? I don't know. I find that when I layer the flavors during different stages of the cook, it does help. For example, you see me do a dry brine, followed by a wet brine, followed by a mop, followed by a wrap, followed by final saucing. So I've actually flavored the product using a wet or dry product, right? 6 or 7 times during the cook. But most people will not go through that crazy level of work to do it. So if you are doing it for your home, you can do it any way you want. But for commercial applications, you always have to think of the average Joe or average Jane consumer. What will he or she do with your product to get to a championship result? So that kind of moderates your thinking to create a product that is easy to use. And I can tell you in America, especially, people don't like complicated things. They just want to put the product on and cook it and be done. So like a lot of my chicken moolah rubs and jailbird rubs, I try to create it so that when you apply it and you throw it in the pit or throw it in the oven, you can get a good result at the end. And that's kind of like the underlying development philosophy that I use.
Hey, Harry, beware when you go to a Thai restaurant, though.
What restaurant?
A Thailand restaurant.
Oh, okay. What's about it?
Blow your ears out.
Yeah, they actually have 2 calibrations. So when you go to a Thai restaurant and you say spicy, the lady should ask you American spicy or Thai spicy. Because if you go Thai spicy, right, you have no more sensation left in your tongue or your lips.
In South Carolina, they warned us.
Oh, okay. So which did you have? You had the Thai spicy or the American spicy?
Well, they didn't say it that way. He said, I suggest you have it normal.
Normal, okay.
Nowhere close to Mexican hot with the jalapenos or the peppers.
Okay.
It was hot.
Yeah, the jalapenos are hot, but if you have a Thai chili, right? Thai, those little small bird chilies, those are like off the charts. And if you really want to clear your sinuses, that would be one way to do it.
Especially the red one, the ones in my yard right now. Oh, those are spicy.
Oh, you are growing them in your yard?
Yes, I do. I have some.
Yeah, you should dry it, and then grind it into a powder, and then use it on your rub. It might kick up the flavors.
Oh, okay, I'll give it a try.
Yeah, you can add some Thai dried chili. You just dry in the sun, and you can dry in the dehydrator and then grind it up. Sprinkle some. You can also try to sprinkle it in the beginning. You can try to sprinkle it during the cook, or you can sprinkle it at the end before you serve the meat. So I always try to use the spices in 3 different phases. That way I can see how the flavor and the complexity of the flavor changes with different applications. And then you guys know that when you apply heat, the sensation of the spiciness is muted. So if you heat the spice like chili, then it becomes less potent. So these are things that you can play around with. That's why it's so much fun, right? Playing with seasonings, because you can spend an entire lifetime playing with seasonings and never run out of ideas.
Harry, in your personal cooking for yourself, do you change your seasoning profiles based on the grades of meat that you're trying to cook with? Let's say like a prime or a choice versus like a Wagyu style beef, so that you're not masking the meat's natural flavor by putting a spice or a rub on it?
I have the sensation that I cook for myself is less is more. And you see me do a lot of crazy things on my channel, trying to amp up the flavor. I honestly enjoy less seasoning. So let's say if I have a good piece of Wagyu meat, I won't try to kind of do too much with it using a lot of product, a lot of my rubs. I just cook it with salt and pepper and garlic. And that's kind of how I enjoy my meat. So when I cook for myself at home, I tend towards what I call more the natural flavor of the meat. As you've seen on my channel before, I like to cook pork with no seasoning. Why do I do that? Is because I really enjoy the natural flavor of the pork. Now, will that win a contest? You won't win a contest. But in terms of my own personal eating, that's what I prefer to do, is to just let the natural flavor of the meat come through. And use less product if I can. I wouldn't necessarily change the combination of the product, because the product in itself is a pretty good combination of flavors that provides the complexity that I'm looking for. But I would tone down the level of the seasoning so that the meat will shine through more. In competition, it's completely a different story. You're trying to win a contest, you're trying to win a $10,000 check. So you do whatever you can so that the judges will score you the highest. When you're eating, right, 48 ounces of meat in a contest as a judge, I can guarantee you by the 3rd or 4th meat, your mouth taste buds already are destroyed by all the chemicals the teams have put in. So if I don't provide you with the super salty, super charged piece of meat in that 2-ounce bite, you're not going to score my entry with the perfect score. So it's a completely different story for competition than what you would do at home. When you do it at home, if your family doesn't like spicy, don't put spicy. If your family are all diabetic, please don't put the sugar in it. So if your family who have high blood pressure, don't go easy on the salt. All right, anyone have any last parting questions? Any parting thoughts?
Have a good weekend.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining me for this session. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Take care.
Have Merry
Thanks, everybody.
Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody. And then hopefully everybody has a safe Christmas, please, right? Try not to get into crowds with people, all right? Just follow Dr. Fauci. He's gives good advice.
We're in lockdown in the Bay Area.
Yeah, cook barbecue. That's it. I will have a lot more videos coming soon. So I'm posting a tamale special. I'm posting a duck special also, and then for New Year I'll be posting some lobster specials, and then I'm gonna make some chili crab on the grill. So lots and lots of fun stuff coming your way shortly.
Okay. Take
All
care.
right. Take
Thank
care,
you.
guys.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye.